Welcome back. The Judicial Service Commission this afternoon holding interviews, and again tomorrow they're going to appoint 3 judges to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and they're considering the nomination of the Deputy Chief Justice Mandisa for the position of Chief Justice. 2 years ago, the JSC said it did want to appoint Maya to the court. President Cyril Ramaphosa appointed Raymond Zondo Chief Justice instead. Zondo is now retiring as his term on the Constitutional Court ends in August. Maya is the only person who's been nominated for the position of Chief Justice. Mbekezeli Benjamin is from the organisation Judges Matter. Mbekezeli, good afternoon to you. Firstly, the nomination of Deputy Chief Justice Maya, I mean, it kind of makes sense, doesn't it? You want to appoint the Deputy Chief Justice as the Chief Justice. You want a sort of line of progression at some point.
Yeah, good afternoon, Stephen, and good afternoon to the viewers. Yes, it does help to have the Deputy Chief Justice take over as Chief Justice, because that sort of facilitates a smooth transition. But it is not the usual tradition. In fact, it's only been 3 times in our history that the Deputy Chief Justice has become Chief Justice. Certainly does help smooth the transition.
I suppose one of the obvious questions we would have to ask President Ramaphosa is that he's nominated just Maya this time, so it's a single nomination. Last time, the JSC interviewed 4 candidates. They said they wanted Judge Maya was their first candidate, and he went in another direction. Is it fair to ask him, OK, why not Maya then, but why Maya now? I mean, this is a difficult conversation for her, but is that a fair question to ask him? Why not then, but why her now?
Yes, I think it would be an interesting question that the president would have to ask. But I think for the purposes of the judiciary, it is not a question that a lot of us spend a lot of time thinking about, because both Justice Zondo was a good candidate for Chief Justice, and so were all of the other 4 candidates. So it wasn't that we had a poor candidate and now we're having a better candidate. It was really choosing the best of the best. And in fact, this time around, it is exciting that a new candidate, a much younger candidate, is coming as Chief Justice. If appointed, Justice Maya will serve about 10 years in the position, and that is good for stability. It is good for seeing through some of the longer-term plans, and which is part of what the JSC is so crucial in this process. They need to interrogate her on those long-term plans, what her vision is, and how will she achieve or maintain the strength of the judiciary while dealing with the challenges that the judiciary faces.
There's sort of 2 things to being Chief Justice. There's the judgments, the way in which you may or may not direct the court. Obviously, you can't sort of overplay that, because each judge makes their own decision in a way. And then there's the administration. I'm going to come back to the administration in a moment. If we look at her track record, the judgments she has written, can we sort of read anything into which direction she might take to the court as Chief Justice? Is there anything that might point to where she would go?
Well, there are a few indicators, Stephen, one of which is the judgment that came out this morning. It took the Constitutional Court about 9 days to deliver a judgment in the ANC versus MK Party case, which is unheard of in the Constitutional Court. So that is something that I think she can come in and say, I did that. Secondly, the General Counsel of the Bar, which represents advocates, they did a study of her judgments over the last 18 months. And she's been involved in about 23 cases. She's written about 6 to 8 judgments. And in those judgments, they were either unanimous or she was in the majority, which means that she commands the respect of her colleagues at the Constitutional Court. She is able to pull together people along the same mentality or same ideas in order for the judgments to be delivered. And that is good. It bodes well, in as much as the judges are independent, obviously, but the ability to influence and persuade your colleagues is vitally important for the Chief Justice, because it maintains the certainty and stability of the law.
And then back to the administration and the Constitutional Court. I think it was you pointed out, might have been someone else, apologies if I get it wrong, Mbekezeli, that it took until April for the Constitutional Court to issue its first ruling for the year. Their caseload has expanded, so there's a lot more work to be done. Being Chief Justice is not an easy job. You really work for the money.
It really is not easy, Steve. Steve, it's very, very difficult. And yes, we did have criticism of the Constitutional Court and how slow it was in delivering the judgments. And part of the problems at the Constitutional Court are more systemic, and which is why Justice Maya would need to speak about those systemic problems and what solutions she has. But beyond that, there's also the job of leading the judiciary as an institution. The Chief Justice is the one who speaks on behalf of the judiciary and has to sort of lead from the front. We know that Justice Maya is not a person who loves the media. I understand that she also doesn't even like cameras. And so it would be important to hear her speak about how she will defend the judiciary, how she will uphold the values of the Constitution and inspire other judges to follow those values. And the most other important part of the role of the Chief Justice is to enforce the ethics and standards of the judiciary. She has been instrumental in making sure that the Judicial Conduct Committee, which adjudicates complaints against judges, that body functions and functions a bit more efficiently. So that is something we can credit her for doing. But we still are concerned about how slow the processes within the Judicial Service Commission are, and that is something that she would need to tackle.
Okay, the positions on the Supreme Court of Appeal, 3 judges, 3 positions open there, I should say. Obviously, it's not the Constitutional Court, but if you look at how many cases they actually deal with, they set precedents that other courts follow. It's an important place.
It is a vitally important court, Stephen. And in fact, the majority of the cases that go on appeal will only end up at the Supreme Court of Appeal. Only a small minority, on my estimation, it's less than 10%, will actually end up at the Constitutional Court. So the SCA carries the bulk of the appeal work that comes from all the high courts across the country. So it is a vitally important court. And over the last a couple of years, unfortunately, it has lost some of its more experienced judges through promotion, through retirement, and even 2 deaths. They have lost judges. And so it does need experienced judges to come on. It does need judges who will hit the ground running, so to speak, when it comes to the work of the Supreme Court of Appeal. Now, there are currently 3 vacancies that the JSC is interviewing for, but last week the JSC announced that there are 3 more. What we as Judges Matter are saying is that the JSC should appoint all 6 right now, because it is more cost efficient, more time efficient, and actually will do better for the Supreme Court of Appeal.
The Constitutional Court, as you've pointed out many times, has had problems getting enough candidates. Still don't understand how that can happen, but I think I get it. Does the Supreme Court of Appeal have the same problem, people who don't want to go through the JSC interviews?
Well, the Supreme Court of Appeal has the opposite problem. Right now, there are 10 candidates for 3 vacancies. The bulk of those candidates are excellent judges who would be appointed today, and they would be effective from day one. So the problem and the headache in the SCA is actually choosing who amongst those good candidates can be appointed to the Supreme Court of Appeal, and which is precisely why we're saying the JSC should make that decision right now. They should appoint all 6 candidates today and not wait until October.
Mbekezeli Benjamin from Judges Matter, thank you very much indeed. Important sitting again by the Judicial Service Commission.